Good afternoon and welcome to Chamber University. Today's topic is communication with new insight with our presenter, Robert Negron. Robert is a speaker and coach who has been with the John Maxwell team since 2015. Robert has facilitated mastermind groups and lunch and learn sessions covering a wide range of personal growth and leadership topics. Robert is married to his wife, Linda, has 2 daughters and 1 son-in-law, and has been blessed with 4 grandchildren. His desire is to build leaders who desire to serve their families and communities. It is my pleasure to introduce again to you and welcome Mr. Robert Negron.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. Communication is at the heart of who we are. If we don't learn how to communicate correctly, we're going to be finding ourselves with a lot of problems. That's bottom line, as many of you know. We need to be able to refine our communication to grow in the way we communicate with one another. The way we communicated 5 years ago is not at all the same way that we're going to be able to communicate with people in today's world. I titled my topic today, communication, a new perspective for business professionals. So we could take a step back and look, what does communication really mean? Why do we do it? What are the methods of communication? What's the purpose of it all? And what happens when we don't communicate correctly? So I'd like to start by going to my first slide. The purposes behind communication. What are some of the purposes that we have? Well, one, in the business world, we want to convey a product, a service, maybe an idea, or a concern. And at times we need to receive input. It's often good to get input about how we are introducing a new product before we actually, it's good to get input before. It's funny, Greg, you talked about, well, I won't go there, but many times we have to listen. Our listening is often our best weapon. And it's in our listening that we really figure out what our customers and what our clients need. We need to be able to better understand others and create a deeper connection between 2 or more parties. It's in our seeking to understand one another that I feel that's where we find our most deepest connection. It's not about selling someone a product. It's about being able to hear their heart, about meeting a need, and about walking away feeling good that you were there to help that person in whatever area it is. That's true communication. Communication also inspires action. We need to be clear in the way we communicate our message. We need to be prepared in the way we do it. So when we communicate, we're going to be able to inspire some type of action on the other part that people that are listening to us. We're going to give an opportunity to share and others an opportunity to share and feel included in the process. We want to ensure everyone is on the same page regarding a project, a principle, or a procedure. When you're doing training, basically what you're doing is you're communicating your vision on the way something should be happening to someone else so you both can become on the same page. You want to get people on the same page because often we take for granted the experience that we have in a given area, and we assume that the person that we're communicating to knows exactly what we know. And that's a death trap. We have to take time to share with other people, get their perspective, and give them the time to learn when we're communicating in business. Sometimes we have to confront others about a behavior or an unprofessional action that's been taken. Communication is not always something that's easy, something that's simple. Something that sometimes we have to take on tough situations, but often if we take them on in the right manner, there can be a breakthrough that happens that helps us both get to the other side and will draw us even closer together. Sometimes we need to communicate simply to prove a point. We have to explain, we have to show why we're doing certain things in a given manner. And last, to encourage others or share an experience that will motivate others. Sometimes we need to communicate. Our communicating is just done by listening, encouraging other people, letting them know that they can get through this situation. Like right now with coronavirus, I'm sure many of us have been put in the situation where we've been talking to other people and trying to give encouragement to others. That's a big part of who we are and a big part of communication. We must do it right. We must be careful about the words that we're saying. We must be careful about getting too negative, becoming negative, especially when things aren't going the way we want them to. Could anybody add a purpose behind communication that you see that maybe wasn't added here?
If you'd like to talk, all you have to do is unmute yourself.
Yeah. Look good, Claudia? So as you can see, there's a myriad of purposes behind communication. So what are some of the methods of good communication? One thing that I always try to do when I write, especially when I write an email, I try to be clear and simple. Clarity and simplicity. The words we use must be clear and not garbled. Easily understood and not complicated. It's very important not to confuse people when we're talking even. Whether we're talking, whether we're writing, in our advertising. I'm sure in Jose's business, I'm sure he's learned over the years that the most profound and most successful advertising is when it's simple and straight to the point and clear. Good methods. Another method of communication is our listening, which I say one of the most important parts of communication, which builds rapport and creates understanding on both sides. Preparation. We must take time to prepare when we're getting ready to say something. We must think things through, especially as leaders. We talk about being a leader. We have to create new habits. We have to have new breakthroughs in the way we learn to communicate with people, because people are holding us to a higher level. So when we go to communicate, we have to be prepared. We have to be prepared for sometimes when things don't come across correctly. We need it, especially like you were asking Greg in marriage. I know I have to think through sometimes what I'm going to say before I do it, because when we get caught up in the back and forth, it often goes down the wrong road. So we have to prepare our minds, prepare ourselves. Sometimes it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy all the time, but it's important to take a step away. Even like in business, when you get ready to write an email, sometimes you have to walk away from your desk, maybe come back to that issue or topic a few hours later before you actually say what you want to say, so you don't say something that you're really going to end up regretting down the road. Shooting from the hip can cause errors, omissions, and is usually unstructured. Preparation allows us to hone in on the exact message that we want to be sent. Excitement. Show excitement for your message. It conveys the fact that what you have to say is something others would want to hear about. We can't be apologetic about what we're doing. We have to say, listen, hey, this is what I can do for you. Come on board. Let's do this together. Create in that creation of excitement, you're building that customer, you're building that relationship that's going to take you to the next level. And you don't want to be saying things that you know that you can't deliver on. I'm not saying that at all, but you do want to be excited about what you know you can do and what you can deliver. Excitement, show passion, because you believe that in the long run, what you're going to do for that client is going to be for their best. And you're going to be able to hold your head up and say, boy, I really helped this person in this area. So I tied excitement and passion almost together, but it's critical to know why you believe in the service, product, or idea. Passion shows you really care. We don't want to do anything apathetically, with apathy. Oh, well, if they take it, okay. If they don't take it, oh, so be it. Oh, well, yada, yada, yada. No, we got to be excited. We got to say, what am I going to do to make this happen? My time is valuable. All of our times are valuable. So when we do something, we need to do it with preparation. We need to do it with excellence. Not perfection necessarily, but with excellence. We have to strive for excellence. We strive for perfection, but we know that we're not perfect, but we can strive for perfection. We can strive for excellence in what we do. If there's a given area of our work where we know we need to get trained on so we can become better in that area, we need to make the time to do that. One of the most important parts of communication in the workplace is documentation. At least when you start to deal with multiple people that are going to be on your staff, it's important that if you're not there, that people can reach for a document and see how to do things. And that document is like a living document that can be changed over time. But it's important to have some good documentation. And it really helps you as you think through creating documentation. It helps you think through that process. There's steps that you can remove, and it's a really good way to fine-tune the process. So I'm a strong believer in creating documentation because it's a great way of communicating. Always look for win-win scenarios where both parties come away like they've been respected and their input is valued. It doesn't have to be me or them. Look for that win-win situation. There's usually always that common ground where both people can come together and can walk away feeling like they got a good deal. Especially when you're doing negotiations. When you're doing negotiations for like equipment or services that you're going to provide, work with the clients, work with the customers in a manner and come to them with that mindset that we're going to be able to work together to find the right agreement. Because sometimes we get caught up in it's got to be this number or else it doesn't work. That might be true in some situations, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for flexibility and working together where the people that you're serving really believe that you really care about them. And it's not just about the dollar. Now, I know sometimes you can't, you're fixed into certain fee structures and things like that, but whenever possible, look for that win-win situation. Because I have found over the years that it really pays a lot of dividends. Anybody like to add anything before I go to the next slide?
I just have a question, Robert.
Sure.
In terms of communications, I've been exposed to communication, I would say, for the last 10 years, maybe. And I still struggle in that area. And many of you probably know that. Now, do you use any formula when you want to, because you were talking about sending an email, the way that you want to express can be received in the same way that you are sending it. What method do you use to be satisfied with those lines that you are saying? Say, okay, I did. Because sometimes we can sound harsh, sending something that we think is good in our side, but you never know the response in the other side. How they going to take the message? What do you use? What method do you use?
Well, it's definitely, first of all, I want to say it's definitely an art that you have to continually refine and you get better at. I'm sure that 20 years ago, I couldn't do it as well as I do it today. But some of the things that I've learned to do is, as I said earlier, I want to keep my emails clear, to the point. I want to, often after I write an email, I go back to it multiple times and re-look at it to think about how is the user, or the client rather, going to receive this. There's ways to explain your position without being harsh. The English vocabulary is amazing. We're very blessed to have the English vocabulary, and you may feel the same thing with speaking Spanish. But the more you learn it, it's amazing how you can show things and you can explain things in a way with grace instead of with harshness. And I know sometimes you might get a harsh email, but that's an opportunity. You have to look at it as an opportunity to change the whole conversation in a different way. And I know you've been to a lot of different seminars, and I'm sure that you've started to learn about different ways to interact with people. And so it really goes back to that. You have to do the refinement. Don't be afraid to have a thesaurus or a dictionary near you when you get ready to write an email. Take a step back and ask yourself, what is it I really want to convey here? And as I said, in looking for that win-win scenario, how can I convey this message where it's not going to be putting anybody else down? And I know, and you know who you are, and know who you are to the point where it's going to come across in your writings. You know who you are as a man, as a business owner. Trust that if you work it, refine it, it's going to come out great. But you have to take time. You have to, there's been times where I've developed material, I looked at it later, I threw it out, I would print it, I look at it, I throw it out, and I say, no, this is not going to work. I need to start from scratch. Yeah, it's not fun, but I've had to do that. At other times, I've been able to look at it, tweak it. Sometimes I let my wife look at it. I say, honey, look at this. How does this look like it comes across? And over time, Jose, I promise you, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it. because it's natural. The more that we do anything, the better we're going to get at it, because God is going to help us with it. And I'm sure that I could probably, if I had a little time, I'll take a little time and actually put something together specifically for that issue of refining email and making sure that they're clear and concise and different things that I would suggest that anyone do.
Yeah, well, can I just add something, Robert?
Sure.
It's a technique, right, of how you write, between writing passively or actively. And it's a concept, you know, that once you can refine that, it helps so much, especially, you know, with your written communication, where it just shortens everything so much, you know. I wish I could just think of a simple example now, but it's like the way you word things. It's like saying, I would like to inform you that it would be great if we could meet on, I don't know, Thursday mornings instead of Fridays. I don't know. And instead of just saying, you take out all the I would like to, you know, and just say, I'm informing you we're meeting now on Friday. Yeah. You know, just shorten it all, make it really clear, really simple.
Or how about like something like, hey, let's get together on Friday. Something quick to the point. The other thing, Jose, I wanted to share is because I know the area of, you know, sometimes we get harsh emails, sometimes we get people, customers who are discouraged. They can even be hateful at times. But the first thing in any email is what you want to do is you always want to acknowledge the other person's feelings. When you do that, it's like you're diffusing a fire. You got to acknowledge the person's feelings. And then from there, you take them to where you want to go. By saying, listen, I'm sorry that this happened. We're gonna do everything we can to make it right. In the communication, there wasn't correct communication, and we'll do a better job with our communication in this area. If people were willing to accept responsibility and just say, listen, I'm sorry, let's get this right. I care about you as a customer, as a client. People will melt in your hand when you do that. Because when you say that, you're showing humility. People are not going to continue to scream at you.
No, but if I do that, they will come back, Robert, and I don't want them to come back. Not just kidding.
Well, here again.
No, but I get your point. I just been trying to make fun, but it's true. Yes, you have to. Yeah, you have to give value to your people, and that's the key. Give them value and be there when they need you. And yeah, if there's any issue, address that definitely. Yes. Yeah.
I think it's also very helpful to try to see the other person's perspective. And anytime you can, you can't always figure that out, but if you can put yourself in that other person's shoes, then it makes it a little easier to try and deal with them.
Yeah, because we never know what other people are going through either. Like right now, especially with this coronavirus, you know, a lot of people are on edge, and they're worried about their families, they're worried about their their parents, their children. And so it's very easy when you're in that, when you have those worries on your mind, to not act in a way that you really, people are really proud of. And so that's the opportunities that I'm sharing, is that when as we master this area of communication, who we are as people becomes so much greater than the products that we sell. The product is just, it's great, but it's that human interaction that we want to get right, that we want to be good at. Because if, God forbid, 2 years from now, you had to do something different than what you're doing today, it's those, what they call soft skills, that you're going to be able to carry with you wherever you go. Right? Learning how to deal with people, because in any job, in any profession, in the bottom line, we all end up having to deal with people. And then, I mean, then you could, if we're talking about dealing with a manager, then you have a whole different relationship and methods that you have to learn to do as you interact with your manager, because you have to show a respect for their authority. I know a lot of people who, they go to a job, and when they get to the job, they're sour and they don't respect the authority there, and they don't like the decisions that are going on. And so before you know it, they're out the door because they never build up any rapport with their authority. All right, so let's go to my next slide. That's good though. It's meant to spur thought. It's meant to spur conversation. Methods of good communication continued. Good communication is communicated through our expressions, which must be aligned with the message we're sharing. Excitement, sadness, elation are a few that bring additional meaning to our words. People often when they're looking at us, they're looking at our faces, so our expressions should be in alignment with what we're saying. I know when we get up and do the 45-second commercials, it's really important to, when you first get up there, that your message, your excitement, your face is going to reflect the excitement you have for what you're doing and what you stand for, what you have to share in the area of the products or services that you're offering. So we do that through our expressions, through our smile, through our confidence that things are going to work out. Good communication should never include sarcasm, which is a negative way to get a point across. Sarcasm hides the real issue.
I'm in trouble.
Sarcasm, you have to get to the root of why you're sarcastic, because really what sarcasm really is meant to do is it kind of like puts people down, but you try to like smile about it to make it seem like it's okay. I personally am very sensitive about sarcasm because my dad was always very sarcastic to me. And I never felt we could communicate, and he never understood me because he always had something, to me, it was negative to say. So that's why, for me, I include that, because sarcasm never was never helpful in our communication. And I think that if you ask most people, they would say that they're not crazy about sarcasm. I want people to talk to me in an honest way, but not a sarcastic way. It's like demeaning. Good communication should never attack someone's character who may have done something that may be seen as wrong or inappropriate, but instead be done in a professional manner. We all get let down. We all have expectations of the people that are around us. We have to really be careful when we start thinking that it's okay to attack someone's character. This goes for our personal life as well as our professional life. It doesn't matter. We have to try to separate what's happened from who the person is as a human being, and try to always, in all situations, treat the person as a human being. We can address the behavior, but we don't attack them and put down person's character. Especially, you never want to do that in business. You never want to do that in business. Anybody want to share anything about that? Okay. Good communication in a non-confrontational way includes asking pertinent questions relevant to the subject matter taking place. Never be afraid to ask questions, as others are probably thinking the same thing. This is one thing I learned many years ago when I used to work in corporate America. Many people were always afraid to ask questions because they always thought they would be seen as not knowledgeable. Well, it turns out asking questions were the things that make us knowledgeable, because that means that we're listening. That means we want to grow in that area. That means we're open, that we're teachable. And because of that, if you're going to be teachable, you have to be willing, you have to be prepared to ask questions. Because many of us, we don't get it the first time around. And when people are asking you, if you're training someone else, for example, and if they're asking you questions, that just shows that they want a deeper understanding of what you're trying to explain. Good communication, methods can include verbal, written, visually through a picture or video, through tools such as papers, books, social media, texting. There's a myriad of ways that we communicate in today's world. We text one another. We send an email to one another. We are on the phone with one another. We're on Zoom now with one another. We communicate with you through YouTube, through a video. We communicate through Facebook. We are constantly communicating with one another. We want to be connected. We all want to feel like we're connecting and that we're getting our message out there. So that's why it's so critical to develop these good communication tools. As we get more and more exposure, we're going to need to be doing things a little differently than what we had done in the past, as I said earlier. There's a lot of good books on communication, on communicating. So, what are some communication results? Positive communication, what are some of the things that we get out of positive communication? It builds relationships, enforces teamwork, breaks down walls of division, allows for openness, diversity of ideas. When we're in a framework of open communication with one another, the sky's the limit. We can all grow together and see that everyone has something to contribute. Everybody has a unique role and a unique service, a unique product, and that we can all learn from one another and that we're all on this journey together. It's just not about how we're doing. And the downside is the negative communication, which destroys morale, it creates disunity, brings fear, destroys sharing. I mean, look on some of the social media sites and you'll easily see negative communication all over the place. People putting one another down. You have an opinion, and sometimes the subject that actually was started has nothing to do with where the conversation ends up going. But people are so quick in today's world to put one another down. And this is where it's so important that we must set ourselves apart from the way other people behave. We have to call ourselves to a higher level. Because I think in doing so, we're going to make a difference. We're going to make a difference if we truly see that we can impact this world and we take seriously the way we communicate with one another and the words we use. And the words that tear people down, we got to get rid of them. The negative attitudes, negative feelings toward one another, that's what creates all of this disunity in our country. So if we start right at home and in our own businesses with positive words, words that edify one another, our workers, our co-workers, be quick to congratulate and thank other people that you work with for their part on your team. Those are the things that are gonna carry you for years to come. And then I have another category here called apathetic communication. Being apathetic means you don't really care. It's not necessarily negative, it's not positive, but you've taken on an attitude of, I don't really care anymore. And if you don't care, and if someone's trying to deal with you, and they can't count on you because you're not showing up, it's going to leave doubt in them. It leaves insecurity because they don't know who's going to show up on any given day. It will stifle action. They might move forward a little bit and then they'll stop. There's no follow-up. So that's why I created a separate category for apathetic communication. Anybody like to add anything on that one?
There's something that I kind of, not sure where I picked it up, but whenever there's a disagreement between people, I've come up with a saying that I usually say, and I think it helps a lot, is that, just because a lot of people act like your opinion is wrong. And I think that's where a lot of negative communication comes from. So I've come to the conclusion that people need to understand, just because we don't agree, that doesn't make the other person right and you wrong. It just simply means we don't agree.
Right.
And it's better to agree to disagree than it is to continue with the negative communication, because that only gets worse and worse and worse. And I found that statement right there diffuses a lot of, it makes people think, that, he's right. Thinking about that. It's okay to disagree.
Yeah, that's totally true. I can remember a few situations where I've posted something myself on Facebook, and someone that I felt like was a close friend maybe put something that was totally against what I was putting, and it hit me, and it's like, wait a minute, he can't disagree with what I have to say. But after you work through it, I started to realize, fortunately, I never got in the position where I would write negative things, but a lot of people would. But fortunately, I got to that point where I say, well, it's okay if he's got a different opinion than me. It's okay that we can still move on. And because of that, your relationship is actually stronger, because if you can move on after you disagree with something, that means that there's something worth holding on to, and that you have found a true friend that you can disagree with but still care about, and you're not going to let that destroy the relationship.
Robert,
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead.
No, that I not with the intention at all to bring politics or anything, because it's not about politics, but it's about, I am concerned about this country, and how, people can't agree, right? I mean, either you're here or you're there, and there is no dialogue in the middle whatsoever.
Right.
And it's, to me, very concerning that when somebody doesn't see things the way you see it, you're labeled. One from
Wrong.
this side to that side, or that side to this side, and then there no dialogue can happen.
And people
And
just
it's
say
very,
you're wrong.
to me, it's extremely concerning,
Yes, yes, it's very true. And that's why I put in one of the bullets earlier about looking for win-win scenarios, because I've come to realize I don't have all the answers. I'm not perfect.
Who
I don't have
does?
all the answers. Nobody.
Nobody does.
And by me allowing myself to be teachable, to be willing to listen to other people's sides of things, that creates a bridge between us. And I believe that that's more important than me taking a stand so strong that I won't even hear what you have to say, because I so believe that my opinion is so right.
But
Because I think that we can learn how to become a better country, a better world, when we're willing to listen to one another.
That's one thing. It's often said that, we need to have these conversations, but then when you have that conversation, it gets shut down, and it's just, you're trying to have an open and honest conversation, and you can't. So it's like,
yeah,
Well, it takes two.
yeah.
and I would even add another bullet there, not to be presumptuous, but as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking that it's like looking for what's right with the other person and not just for what's wrong so I can attack. You know what I mean? Like, if you go there and say, okay, we all want what's best for this city, let's say, right? And so let's start a dialogue for what's best for this city. And let me listen to everybody. I want to listen. Everybody here wants the same thing, so just because I don't agree with what they're saying doesn't mean that their intention is negative. Maybe there is something good in what they're saying, but just go with the positive, with an open mind to begin with, no?
Exactly. Very true.
Well, that's the thing. We were all given two ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth.
Yes, for good reason, right?
We're supposed to listen and look twice as much as we talk, unless you're the speaker.
Exactly, but if you're using your 2 ears to listen for what's wrong with what that person's saying so you can attack him, it's no good, right? I mean, so it's about that openness and intention that you start off the conversation with, right? That dialogue. I think it's missing these days. It's really missing.
Yeah, we're very much divided, and I don't know how to fix that. I really don't. But
how one person at a time, one conversation at a time. And I'll tell you, I had a really interesting conversation with one member of our RCG group. I'm not going to say any names, but we somehow started getting into this conversation where we realized quickly we're in opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of ideology, and but we agreed that the win in our conversation was our ability to listen to each other, and to appreciate that, hey, actually we both want what's best, so even though we disagree, and we ended up with that point, like, we could all do ourselves and our country well by starting to just open our minds and stop labeling people. That's the main thing. Do not label people.
Huge. That's huge. We got to stop labeling each other, stop the name calling. So a lot of what he's saying in here is absolutely true. We've got to stop all that stuff. And it just seems to be going and going and going and going. But what do you do when, not to get too far, but when the media is doing it?
No, exactly. It's a real problem. It's everywhere, so.
And nobody seems to really want to stop it.
Yeah.
The only thing we can do as individuals is stop it ourselves. Just don't
exactly.
do it.
Yeah, change.
And catch ourselves when we're doing it. It's easy to do it.
Change starts with us.
Exactly.
We can't do a thing about everyone else. We can change ourselves, and then hopefully in the way we change ourselves, others will see a different way and then desire to change and want to say, well, maybe that is a way that's worth looking at. Maybe I should embrace that as well. But change has to start, and we have to focus on ourselves instead of getting discouraged and focus on everybody else. Because it's like how, saving children in Africa, we can only do what we can do, but don't get discouraged to the point where you don't extend a hand to where you don't do anything.
Yeah.
And yes, and that's why I'm saying that we have there's power that we have in our communication, that when we communicate differently than the world, we're taking a stand for what's right. And that's worthy. And I think that I know that God honors that. You good, Jose?
Yes, no, I agree. And again, it boils down to communications, because that's the key. Without that, I don't think this world is a mess. But and I think we're learning. We as humans, I think every day, especially with this coronavirus right now, at least we have another thing in common, and that's that we have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah. And we should be all appreciative of what the nurses and doctors and those on the front lines are going through right now to try to save as many lives as possible. I'm reminded of all, as we talk about, the differences on how we allow differences to separate us. I'm reminded of 9/11 and how those firemen and the New York police ran into that building and were willing to sacrifice their lives for the people that were in the building. And those policemen and those firemen, when they did that, they didn't care whether those people were Republicans or whether they were Democrats, whether they were black, whether they were white. They were human and they were lives. And they were willing to sacrifice their life for them. And if we could just hold on to that message and see that we're all human, and we need to be able to take a stand and do the same thing, like taking a stand in the same way that those firemen and the police did. Taking a stand for what's right.
And I think that's a lot of the problem that's even with this, we have to use it right now, the technology. The problem is you're sitting behind a keyboard. You're sitting behind a monitor. You're not really like face to face. So especially like on social media, you're not face to face. So it's not the same. You could hurt somebody's feelings and you don't really know it. So then somebody wants to come back and hurt their feelings, and it just keeps perpetuating that way. Like, some I don't know how to say it any other way than, you get keyboard cojones. I don't know another way to say it, Try to say it the nicest way.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying. My kids, they do a lot more social media than me, a lot more Twitter. And my oldest, my 17-year-old, she comments on how mean people can be when they're posting stuff on Twitter, you know, like nobody knows really who they are usually, and they can be so harsh. And she says, Mom, she says, even these celebrities, they have feelings too, and everybody messes up sometimes, but people are so harsh, and it's because, you know, it's easy to do it when you're doing it online, you know. Nobody can spot really who you are, but it's cruel.
Yeah, it gets back, and a lot of it, like you said, it gets back to the labeling
Yeah.
that we often do. We put people in categories, and then we think that they're all the same.
Yeah.
And then we justify our behavior toward that given group. All right, so tools to communicate. That was good conversation. Well, we know face-to-face brings the most opportunity for connection. All right. It's definitely the best way when you have to confront a situation. It's not real good to send someone a text when you have to confront them. You have to do it in face-to-face manner to where you give them an opportunity to share their point of view.
Yeah, you know, the thing is that I also do, don't mean to interrupt you, but I also do a college planning course or program, and I'm dealing with a lot of the millennials who are just, all they want to do is send a text. And, you know, I'm old school. I'm 53 years old, and I'm old school. I'd rather pick up the phone and talk to you, hear your voice, hear your emotion, you know, and they want to send a text. And I don't know how to tell them, listen, you know, they don't want to pick up the phone. You call them, they won't pick up the phone. But if you text them, they'll answer you. So it's like I'm forced to try to use their technology. And honestly, I'm just not that, you know, I don't really enjoy texting to begin with. And then I'm trying to do it. And that's where your communication can get really bad really quick. Because you can't, it's hard to put the right emotions in your words, and it could be perceived. You could be trying to say something really nice, and somebody, because of the mood that they're in or whatever, how they took it, they take it completely wrong, you know? Or something is a long drawn out thing that you can't just explain real easily. It's way too much for me to text, and I don't want to sit there doing it.
Have you tried the voice text?
You know, I haven't.
You should try those. Save yourself all the texting, you know, and that way it's just you press this button, you hold it down, say everything you need to say, and boop, and send it. And you just have to press the little arrow to send it. It's much better than having to do it. Much quicker, you know.
And do they hear your voice?
Yeah, they hear your voice.
No, they don't hear your voice. It types it out for you.
No.
No,
there's a way to record it. It's a recorded voice text that you can send. And I know what you're talking about. Some people talking to the phone and it starts typing it with a bunch of typos, and sometimes the message doesn't come out that clear, to be honest. But when you send a voice text, they hear your voice. Try it.
Yeah.
I have it. I don't know. I have an iPhone and it works for me in the iPhone. So
yes, and that's something we're not going to escape from that, because it's technology, and even if we don't embrace it, it's there. And the new generations, they go with the change. We change. I mean, our parents probably didn't even. My parents didn't even have a telephone. Imagine that, calling, "Hey, how are you?" And they will say, "What do you mean you're calling me? Come and see me." You know, things like that. Now we don't feel comfortable with the text. And I think it's something that the world is changing, and we have to adapt. And keeping the communication is challenging sometimes, but it's the way we communicate with technology these days.
Yeah, we have to be equipped for this what we're entering into now. so we can stay connected with the new generation. Because if we lose touch with the next generation, we're not going to have any impact on them. And I think that's a big problem right now, is they all want to think, a lot of them think that they can figure everything out without any type of elder or without anybody helping them in the journey. And it's a problem. So sometimes we have to reach down into their world and try to connect with them on their world, so they can help, so they can then maybe be open to understanding us and our world.
Yeah.
And here on the tools to communicate, you gotta add Zoom.
Yeah.
I prefer this over text for sure.
Yeah, but
But nothing beats face to face.
no.
But don't worry, they say that technology is coming. It's unrealistic now, but it's coming when you are going to be talking to the person by your side, but it's not really by your side. It's just
Virtual.
in virtual or teleportation.
Well, you're by my side right now.
Yeah.
It'll be better. Also, they
Let's
will be
go.
able to paint a picture right beside you.
Yeah.
Well, let's get going because it's getting late.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and finish up here. Email, able to communicate clear and more thought out. In addition, attachments can be used for further clarify a message. Social media, we all know about Facebook, YouTube. Who uses Facebook here?
I do.
Hmm.
A little bit.
Often on, I don't use it that much.
I'm not the
But I
biggest
use
Facebook
it
user.
strongly.
Maybe one of the other social media sites.
I use some Instagram.
LinkedIn.
Oh, LinkedIn,
LinkedIn.
yeah. LinkedIn. That's more that's actually more of a business
Side, yeah. But I use that a lot, yeah. I do need to get better at Facebook though. It's in my to-dos. Just not enough hours in the day.
yeah.
To read personal emails, work emails, LinkedIn, and then also Facebook. Oh my goodness.
I use Facebook for personal, and I do have a Facebook group that I put out pictures out to with with scripture.
What's up? Oh, scripture. Oh, really? That's nice.
Yeah, I have a Facebook page where I put out beautiful pictures of the sunrises and sunsets, and then I add scripture to them.
Oh, nice.
And YouTube, I made a YouTube video today for the Broward Outreach Center. So it's basically a Bible study, and so I spoke to them about a given section of the scripture and did a little YouTube video and sent that over to them, and they're going to show that to some of the men and women there tomorrow night. So
That's nice.
I was excited about that. The first time I'd ever done that.
Broward Outreach Center, you said?
I'm sorry?
It's the Broward Outreach Center?
Correct, the one there in Hollywood.
Good.
Yeah. So then we have personal websites, which is a way of communication. And then advertising and business cards. Advertising, Jose, there must be so many different ways that people are advertising now. How do you keep up with it all?
Yeah, I know. I think I'm over advertised right now.
You're over advertised?
Yes. It's becoming a problem for me right now.
Oh.
Yeah.
You're too exposed?
Too exposed, too much exposure right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
You can hire people, Jose. A lot of unemployed people out there.
With this coronavirus, believe me, you'll be liable in a lot of stuff. So, yes, I got people. Actually, they say, I'm not coming back to work until all this thing happening. Of course, they feel safe and comfortable. So they're not going to come back to
Yeah.
work, especially if they take in unemployment.
So are
Yeah.
there any other, before we close, are there any other ways, questions or anything else that comes to mind about communication when it comes to, in the business world, challenges?
You know, one thing that at Edward Jones we do a lot is we believe a lot in handwritten, old-fashioned cards. You know, like I'll show you. I don't know if you can see these boxes here that I have. Those are like a couple hundred cards that I bought for birthdays, anniversaries, retirements, welcome cards. You know, so to write out to all my clients on their birthday, they receive a card, and if I hear of a birth of a child or grandchild, nice little card. You know, it's different, right? So if for business, what we want is to break through. And one more ad, one more billboard, one more text, one more, you know, it's almost impossible to break through. It's too much. But how can you break through? Well, old-fashioned handwritten card, right?
I like that. You know, I've always been one to send out Christmas cards. I would always have like 50 Christmas cards I would send out. But it wasn't until I came to the church that I'm at now where I started receiving these little hand notes from my pastor, thanking me for being in this, thanking me for being in that, for showing up. And it was like, wow, this is really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, 5 years later, he still sends out, I probably get a note every month or two from him.
Yeah.
And it really does make a difference, because it shows that he hasn't forgotten you,
Yeah.
that he cares about you.
Look, I mean, I came in today and I got this card from an attorney I called. I just called her and I told her, oh, I'm going to refer you a couple clients. I got a thank you card for the phone call and the referrals, you know. I thought that was a nice touch on her side. So there's something to be said about taking the time, right, to write something out for somebody, putting the postage. It takes effort to do.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it's very special. I have one other slide here, barriers to good communication. Fear to approach others with important information. Sometimes fear keeps us away from having those conversations that we really need to have. Fear of being intimidated or confronted by those who you'd like to communicate. Laziness or sloppiness when having an opportunity to present. Being unskilled in a given topic or area. Good communication takes skill. It is an art, but as I said earlier, you have to continue to refine it to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
But the tools are available. There's nothing that's going to stop us, that can stop us if we really care about it. And that's the end. Looks like we ran over 6:07.
Great picture, Robert. Really like that.
Thank you. I love the backdrop.